Who were Bogumili? They were a Christian neo-agnostic sect living in the Balkans during medieval times. They were considered heretics by both Catholics and Orthodox Christians. There are many controversies concerning Bogumili. Everything about Bogumili is open for speculation and debate. Bogumili books and manuscripts were burned. Almost all historical sources are written by the enemies of Bogumili. The name Bogumili means dear to God. Their founder was a man named Bogomil. Some historians think he gave his own name to his followers. Others think that the founder changed his name to Bogomil after establishing the sect. Priest Bogomil supposedly lived in 10th century in the area of Veles and Prilep. Today, towns Veles and Prilep belong to North Macedonia. But in medieval times, they were part of Bulgarian Empire. In European sources, Bogumili was sometimes referred to as Bulgarians. Bogumili spread all over the Balkans, including Serbia. But today, Bogumili are associated mostly with Bosnia. Some see Bogumili as an authentic Slavic version of Christianity. Others see connections between Slavic paganism and Bogumili. Catholic and Orthodox Church proclaimed Bogumili to be heretics. Bogumili were persecuted with whole armies sent against them. They were burnt at the stake, exiled, or branded with hot iron. Why was this happening? In medieval Europe, there was no religious tolerance. Killing heretics was seen as a normal thing. In late 16th century, French Catholics killed French Protestants. Were Bogumili a dangerous sect? No. Bogumili were against state and church authorities. Serb historian Stano Stanojević describes Bogumili as similar to communists and anarchists. This is anachronism, but Stanojević wasn't wrong. Bogumili believed all people are equal, which means they refused class system. Bogumili didn't have church hierarchy. Anyone could become a preacher, including women. They refused to pay the taxes since they rejected the idea of the state. Giving and receiving charity was shameful. Everyone had to work and renounce material goods. Bogumili were encouraged to read the Bible by themselves. This means many Bogumili knew how to read. Illiteracy was a huge problem in medieval times. What about their religious beliefs? Bogumili believed in good God and evil God. Good God made everything that is good. Evil God made everything that is evil. Evil God is from the Old Testament. Good God is from the New Testament. Bogumili were against baptizing children because they cannot understand the sacrament. Bogumili were against icons and saints. Bogumili rejected cross as they saw it as a symbol of torture. Bogumili believed in the resurrection of soul and not body. Bogumili didn't build churches. They prayed in the forests and caves. Bogumili teachings reached Italy, France, and Britain. Catars in South France were similar to Bogumili. The name Catars means the pure ones. Some think that Catars were influenced by Bogumili. In 1208, Roman Pope Innocent III started crusade against Catars. This was called Albigensian Crusade after Albi, the town in South France. Huge number of people were killed in South France. The famous phrase, "Kill them all, let God sort them out," is from Albigensian Crusade. This was said during the sack of Béziers in July 1209. Catars were destroyed. What happened to Bogumili? In Serbia, Bogumili were nicknamed Babuni. The name comes from mountain Babuna in Macedonia. Serbian Grand Župan, Prince Stefan Nemanja, held council against Babuni in 1186. Babuni were killed and exiled. More than 150 years later, Serb Emperor Dušan had to deal with Babuni. Dušan's codex has law against Babuni. Nobleman has to pay fine if he supports Babuni. Ordinary people have to pay fine and would be beaten with sticks. Bulgarian and Byzantine rulers fought against Bogumili, but the situation was different in Bosnia. Kulin ruled Bosnia between 1180 and 1204. He held title of Ban, which can be translated as Duke. Ban is title found in Croatia and Bosnia, but not in Serbia. Ban Kulin gave shelter to Bogumili. He received Patarens escaping from Dalmatia and Babuni escaping from Serbia. Patarens were named after Pataria, neighborhood in Milano, Italy. The trouble is that Bogumili called themselves simply Christians. It is hard to distinguish Bogumili from other Christians. Kulin is probably the most famous Bosnian ruler. Bosnians have saying od Kulina Bana I dobrijeh dana. English, since Kulin Ban and those good old days. Controversial theory is that Bogumili established independent Bosnian church. Many Bosnian Muslims believe their ancestors belonged to Bosnian church. This would mean that Bosnian Muslims were Bogumili before they converted. The problem is that Kulin was Catholic. Some say Kulin was forced to declare as Catholic to save his position. Due to the lack of historical sources, anything is possible. There were no Muslims in Bosnia prior to Ottoman conquests. Bosnians had to convert from Christianity to Islam. Some of them were Catholics and Orthodox Christians. I doubt there were many Bogumili left by the time Turks arrived. We cannot say how many people in Bosnia were Bogumili. They vanished from history in 15th century. There are no Bogumili today in the Balkans. Some believe Bogumili made stečci. Stečci are medieval gravestones and can be found in Bosnia, Serbia, Montenegro and Croatia. There are over 66,000 documented stečci. Huge majority, around 50,000, can be found in Bosnia. Bosnia claims stečci as their cultural heritage. Stečci are very different in shapes. Some are shaped as crosses. We know Bogumili rejected crosses as holy symbols. Most stečci are shaped as chests. Only a small fraction of stečci have inscriptions, which is very strange. Out of over 66,000 stečci, less than 400 have inscriptions. Inscriptions are mostly in Cyrillic, but there are inscriptions in Glagolitic and Latin alphabets. Glagolitic script is the oldest known Slavic alphabet. We call it Glagoljica. Glagolitic script is not used anymore. Stečci are controversial because they have strange symbols carved in them. There are animals like horses and deers, six-pointed stars, crescent moons, spirals, arcades, rosettes. Symbols are always easy to misinterpret. We have no idea what six-pointed star meant for the people in Bosnia in medieval times. What do historians today think about Bogumili? Most historians are neutral towards Bogumili. I would say we know too little about Bogumili to give deeper insight. Since all written sources are either destroyed or already analyzed, I don't expect to see major new findings about Bogumili. Why are Bogumili important today? Bosnian Muslims want to establish narrative that they were always separate ethnic group from Serbs and Croats. Due to the lack of historical sources, this could be both true and false. It is possible that Ban Kulin was Catholic who gave shelter to Bogumili. Since there were no population census, we cannot say how many Bogumili were in Bosnia. They could have made 1% of the Bosnian population, or 50%, or 99%. There is no scientific way to estimate their numbers. Also, it is impossible to say how many Serbs and Croats lived in Bosnia in that period. Balkan history has huge gaps that can be misused in the propaganda purposes. All Balkan nations have their own agenda and propaganda that often includes unverified stories as historical facts. Could Bogumili remain hidden after 15th century? They would have had no reason to hide. Ottoman Empire didn't care about Christian heresy. All Christians had to pay the tax for not being Muslims. Since we know that Bogumili didn't like to pay taxes, this might encourage them to convert to Islam. Bogumili loved purity and celibacy, which means that there weren't many babies born in Bogumili families. In theory, Bogumili families could have died out. Again, we have no evidence to support these theories. In theory, Bogumili could have survived after 15th century. Disappearing from historical sources doesn't mean they were actually gone. It only means that we have no news about them after 15th century. Some small Bogumili groups could have survived for decades or even centuries. The fact is that Bogumili were gone by the time 19th century population censuses gave clearer picture. Could Bogumili be re-established? No. Bosnian Muslims have no intention to renounce Islam. Other ethnic groups like Serbs and Croats feel no connection to Bogumili. Bogumili were Christian heretics, which means that neo-pagan cults would reject them. Protestants in the Balkans are a minority, but they all come from established churches. Although Protestants and Bogumili do share some opinions, like rejecting saints, I don't think Protestants could accept the idea about good God and evil God. Since Bogumili history is obscure, their story is often rewritten. Christianity was always prone to sectarianism. What if Bogumili and Babuni weren't the same? Medieval period is notorious for misnaming people and groups. One theory says that English word bugger was derived from the name Bogumili. This would imply that English had extremely negative opinion about Bogumili. Labeled as sinners or saints, Bogumili shouldn't be forgotten.